Please be aware that the session is now being recorded and will be available for viewing on our YouTube channel. I will put the link.
Recording
Okay. Could everybody please mute their microphone? Okay, please be aware that the session is being recorded and will be available for viewing on our YouTube channel. I will put the link in our chat in a few minutes here. Please keep your microphones on mute throughout the presentation. And the handouts for this session were emailed to you yesterday to the email address that you used to register. If you did not receive them, please put a note in the chat for me and I will make sure they get sent to you. Our presenter today is Darlene Clifford, and she's going to touch on a number of topics for the beginner genealogists and as a review for others. After the presentation, Darlene will address questions that have been submitted, if there are any, and then she will entertain other questions as time permits. We'll try to finish on time today, so we'll be going till 11:30. With this many people, I think it's best if you type your questions directly into the chat as you think of them, and I will read them out for Darlene in the order that they come in. So as I mentioned this morning, or as I mentioned earlier, your presenter is Darlene Clifford. Darlene is a very experienced researcher and genealogist and a certified record searcher. She is a member of the College of Certified Saskatchewan Genealogists, as well as a longtime SGS member. So Darlene, I'll turn the floor over to you now.
Okay, thank you very much, Deanna. And I'd like to welcome everyone. This is kind of a new experience for me because usually I see faces when I'm giving a topic or a class. But anyways, we'll go forward. Okay, like Deanna said, there are some charts and some notes for you to follow along if you so choose. And if not, we'll just get on with the session. So first of all, this is working, yay. Okay, so we have, we're going to talk about charts. And like I said, it's kind of a beginner, but it's also sort of a review for the longtime genealogists too. So I think most of us are familiar with the pedigree chart. And of course, when you're filling out charts, you should print. So print legibly. And I use a pen for a permanent, and I put pencil in for not sure. Or I mean, there is erasable items that you can use nowadays. And my notes here say to capitalize surname and underline the surname. Now I don't know whether I necessarily do that anymore. I just make sure that I've written the name out in full, and I don't put the last name first. That's just so my name is Darlene.
Uh-oh. The host would like to.
Darlene, you've been muted.
Okay, shall I start over again? Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody, and like I said, this is new to me. Usually I'm in a classroom situation seeing people, but we'll go forward. Like I said, we're familiar with the pedigree chart, and we have and usually we print and I use a pen when I've got a permanent record and a pencil if I'm not sure. And like I said, I sometimes in some of the records it says to capitalize your surname or underline it, but usually these days I just write it out in full. For my name, I just put Darlene and Fish. That's my name and maiden name. Make sure you use your maiden name and the dates as the example. I've got the 25th December of 1995, and make sure that you write your date out in full. Because when we go back a few decades, of course, they change, right? Or you want it out in full, and watch for the spelling of your names. And on the pedigree chart, of course, the number one is yourself. So put yourself on there with your full name. So my name would be Darlene, and Fish I would put in there. The B stands for birthday, birthplace, that's where you were born. And make sure that you put your full town and the name of your province or your state or wherever you're born at, and the country also. And this is your married date and death date. Of course, you're still there, but of course, if you use other ones, well, other names. And then up Up, number 2 is your dad. That's your dad, and put his full name, and of course the same thing. And number 4 is his father, and then number 8 is the next father. So that's how you do the pedigrees. And what this is they work backwards. A pedigree chart works backwards. Our next chart here. The next chart is the family unit chart. And what I've done is I've included in the package, you'll see this one has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 children's names on there. But further generations back, I think we had 12 or 13 children. So I also included another, another one where you could add more children's names on there. And this is a unit sheet, and you're certainly welcome to use it, photocopy it. This is one that I've kind of invented myself. I've taken some information from the Saskatchewan genealogy unit sheet, and I've taken some from some other unit sheets I've used, and I've sort of adopted it for myself because and what this is one family. So this is the mother, father, and mother and father of, and then their birthday, all their information, the plate of death, the cemeteries and their marriage dates. And then what I've done is I thought it was kind of neat to add brothers and sisters of the father, or brothers and sisters of the mother, because then you've got some more family history right on that sheet that you can use. And then of course, then the list the children's names in order of birth, and then I also find that at the bottom, make sure that where your information you got from. So what I do is I do a little number with a circle around it, and a little number with a circle on the top. So if you have a birth certificate, then make sure that you put your whole source at the bottom with a little number 1, and so that you get a record. So when you're looking back on it, you'll know for sure where you got your information from. And if you're looking at a document and you find nothing, or sometimes when you're looking, this is more in the research log, you should write it all down. And then also, like, even if you're talking to your mother about your birthday and her birthday and everything, write that you've got it from your mother, that she's the one that gave you the information. So for information, word of mouth, state who gave it to you and under what circumstances, and the date that she gave it to you, to make sure that you know that, so that you write that down. The next one is a research log, and this helps you keep track of the resources, where you got them from. And on my research log, what I did is underneath extract number, I put today's date. So for instance, I've got one here, that location of item, and I think this was for a William Braithwaite. I had a William Braithwaite on my husband's side. And where did I get this item? So I just put the Regina Public Library. The call number was the T6426, which was the film number. And then I put that it was a microfilm, and that it was the 1891 Census of Canada. And I also have the subtitle and the page number that was on, and the date search was 1891. And then I put the date that I found that information. Actually, I've got here August of 1997. And so sometimes when you want to go back and look at these records, you want to know, because things change. Like I know now you can find it on internet, and so your research items change of where you can find this information. So it's a good idea to write down the date that you found this information. Okay, our next one here is our correspondence log. So correspondence log helps you keep track of the letters you've written, to whom, when you sent them, and when you received an answer. And I find that that's really quite information too. I've done this for a few years, and probably in the 1970s or 1980s, I wrote letters to people, and I would log down who I sent it to, the date I sent it to, their name and their address, and sometimes I put like what I included in the package, what kind of information I included. And sometimes I would even include a unit sheet, a family unit sheet, so then they could fill it out easily. And then when they mailed it back, I recorded that's when they mailed it back for me. So I would know when this information came back to me, so that 10 years from now, you can look back and say, okay, this is when I found the information, was where I got it from. Okay. So gathering information. How do you find this information? Well, you attend local classes in genealogy and you learn how to start and how to research. Of course, you always start with yourself. And another thing is do not fall into the trap that just because it's printed or you found it on the internet, it is true. You have to cite your sources, and you have to go to your primary sources, and you have to be careful of your sources that you're using your information for. Look at or purchase for yourself some books, and the SGS library is perfect. Spent several hours there looking through books, and there's lots of how-to books, how to get started, lots of books of once you're in there. They have a wonderful library to develop get your genealogy going. Develop a general plan, gather information, evaluate, and document. And I use a filing system. I have binders. I started out with one binder, and how I do it is I put my you sort of work backwards your pedigree chart. So I put my grandparents, and I put as a unit sheet, I'd put them, list the parent or list their children. And then my mom was the first one born in that family. So then I did up her unit sheet, and hers went directly behind her mom and dad's. And then, then the next one. And so that's how I did it. And then I put little file folders in there to distinguish the different families. And of course, as you do more searching, your binders get fatter, so you have to use another binder. So that's kind of how we did it. I keep the research material in a loose leaf binder. I have also folders that have the surnames on the binders, and then I put information that I find, like a photograph, or when you're researching, you put and then in turn you can take it out of your folder and put it into your family unit binder. Some ideas of how to get some information. You talk to other family members, and I thought this was kind of cute. Go on a family picnic to a graveyard and have the children look for 2 headstones. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. That's a neat idea. And contact your family members and let them know you're doing family history. Ask them if they have any photos or old family photos, old letters, family records, diaries, old Bibles. And nowadays we can quickly take pictures with our iPhones, and we've got it all documented there. I know my daughter-in-law, about a month or 2 ago, she got interested in this. And so she said, what do you have? So I was snapping pictures of the pages I had and sending them to her. So it's so easy these days to take pictures of things and send them off. So it's good. And of course, guard against quick conclusions. Identification of individuals and records takes some time to make sure you've got the right relatives to. And another important piece of information that you should be using is a timeline. And this is the Saskatchewan timeline. And this copy is right out of our tracing your Saskatchewan ancestors. A wonderful book, and it's available at the library, or else purchase a copy, and it's available at the SGS. So it's a good thing. And be aware of what's been happening in the world. Like here in 1871, the first Dominion survey. So that's when we first got our land surveyed. And down here, 1879, we've got the Emmanuel College. And so you kind of have to do, and then once you get into the 1900s, well, then that's with some of the settlers. That's when my grandpa came over, and he settled on the land. So it was about 1910, 1901. So you have to be aware of what is happening in history, and you have to make sure that when you're finding your information on your ancestors, that it makes sense to you. And I know that when people first came over here, they came and they landed on the East Coast, and eventually they worked their way across over to Saskatchewan. So my relatives landed in Ontario, and then they were in Manitoba, and then they eventually got to Saskatchewan. So you have to be aware of the times of when you're doing this. And what I have done is I set up, oh, that's the second one. Okay. Okay. Well, so what I did is I set up an example of my own timeline. I took, this is my grandpa, Robert Fish, and I've got a birth of him in 1825. And his wife's parents, I was lucky enough to find his wife's parents, who are John Wells and Anne Marshall. So I've got those born in 1792 and 1900. I'm thinking, okay, you have to sort of think, okay, there's so many years between them. And then I found a baptism for Anne Fish on August the 6th, and I've got a William and Sophie. Now we're back here to Robert, and now is that his sister? So I'm kind of thinking now maybe that's his sister, because he was born in 1825. And then this is Anne and John, or John and Anne are his wife's mom and dad. And this is Mary Ann Wells. So John and Anne are the parents of Mary Ann, who is Robert's wife. So I'm kind of putting them all in order. And then I've got the immigration of Robert, immigration of Mary Ann. So obviously these parents of Robert must have come over to Canada. And so, you kind of work through it. And here's some of the birth of his sisters come now. Ellen, she was born in St. Catherine. So, okay, now the parents are in Canada. And I haven't been able to find the marriage of Robert's mom and dad yet, or Robert and Mary Ann yet, their marriage. And I'm thinking, so this is how you kind of work through things, and you ask yourself questions to make sure that you're on the right track. And I just find it sometimes if you like, this is just a spreadsheet that I've done up, and it's kind of neat to look back, and now I've got some, the death of, now they've passed away. Anne and John have now passed away. And does that make sense? Like, they're 75, 77, 86 years old. Does this make sense? I guess what I'm saying is, do you have the right family? And this is how you kind of track things. So here's just some ideas, like 15 years between Robert and Anne. Possible. That's a brother and sister. Like, there must be some children in between that. 3 years after marriage, there's a birth of a child, so you kind of have to, and sometimes, children are born shortly after they were married, or sometimes they're born before they're married. So you document all this stuff. And so and how you're finding more information. You can do an interview of elderly relatives, or you can interview the neighbors of the relatives. When you're doing this interview, you can do an introduction. Make sure that you tell the name on your, write down the name of the person that you're interviewing, the location of the interview, and the date of the interview. Keep the interview short. And you can use a tape recorder with permission. You can use your tape recorder. Just have it running, and when you start talking, you kind of forget that the tape recorder is even running. So it's kind of, then you can listen to it later, and make up a list of questions that you're going to ask your person that you're interviewing, so you know what kind of questions, like where they were born, and find out some information, like what they did, some of the things of what they think about. Maybe what the weather was like when they were growing up. What did they do? How did they go to school? Where did they go to school? All kinds of interesting questions that you can ask them, and that all makes the history of the family history. It makes it quite interesting. And sources. Don't forget to cite your sources. Your primary sources are the original sources. Those are the most reliable. So that is your birth certificate, your marriage certificate, your death certificates, and these are the firsthand information, because your mom will probably know where you were born and when you were born. So that's the primary person. And that's the firsthand information, or even your mom or your dad that have registered the birth of the child. So they're the first time. the original ones. And the first recording of the events, and the informants are usually people that were involved in the event, is how we have to look at it. For instance, I have a certified copy here of an entry of a birth. And this is my my husband's grandma, and here's the birth certificate of a birth. And what I did is I did a photo. This is a photocopy that I have, and then I also actually at the top there I wrote where the original one was kept, and that was at the home of my mother-in-law. So I always put that down there too. And across it, and you can find out that it was Amy Elizabeth, and it was the girl, and the name and the surname of the father. So it's you know, this is a copy that I have in my files, and so this is a certified copy of her birth certificate. She was born in London. She's an English gal. And of course, then we have our secondary sources. These are these are the copy records or secondhand sources, and they also contain valuable information. But human nature from copying could enter into the factors. And we have circumstantial evidence. It's valuable history, but it may not be factual. But it's still valuable information to have, because then you can, you know, it helps you with your research. But always document, always document your sources, where you got your information from. And then back to your correspondence. Make sure that, I mean, letter writing can work for you. I know these ages when we've got our computers and whatnot, but I still like paper. You can write letters, or I mean, lots of emails, messages going back and forth. Copy your emails down on paper so you have it, and it does work. Introductory letters, of course, should be brief, and you can state what you know about this person. Sometimes I'll phone people first and say, I'd like to send this. Would you be willing to fill out this documentation? Or sometimes you could just do it over the phone and they'll just tell you the information. So that works too. I send along a copy of the unit sheet with the information that I know, and I ask them to please fill in the blanks. That works most of the time. Sometimes it doesn't work, because you'll get a page back and no, you know, they didn't quite fill it out, but that's okay. It's you know, whatever information you get is okay. And make sure that you send in a self-addressed stamped envelope when you're asking for information like this. And of course, use your correspondence log, and which we talked about earlier, to keep track of all of your letters that you're sending out, or even email messages that you're sending out. You know, write them down, a document when you're doing this, because your memory, you forget after a while. And I remember when I first started doing genealogy, I was just kind of taking names and writing that down. And then as I got more involved in it, I thought, oh my gosh, I need more information here. So then I thought, oh, photographs. And so then you started collecting more and more photographs. And of course, if you had photographs, I mean, of course, they should be kept in an acid-free container. They should be kept safe. And oh, please, you know, you can use a gel pen, like gel pens. You can write on the lower corner, but don't write across the back. And you know, it's better to have something written on the back of a photo than not at all. I sort of look at it this way. But don't use a ballpoint pen; those are horrible. It says don't write across the back of the photo. I mean, you know, if you're going to write something, write it down on the lower corner or along the edge or something. Use Scotch tape. In the early days, I did use Scotch tape because I didn't know any better. And now I look through like 20, 30 years later, and oh my gosh, like the Scotch tape has left marks. And of course, those sticky albums, I don't even think we can get them anymore, thank gosh. But I still have photos in them. So we should be removing them out of those sticky albums, you know, try to get them out of them, and, you know, put them in a more safer container for your photos. And only keep working copies in your working file. Your original documents, you can keep them in a separate file, and then photocopy them and put them in your working file. Internet. nowadays we've got our internet, we've got our Facebooks, we have our databases that we use. And so, you know, we've got so much information now that we can get. It's a very valuable tool for the family historian. Our search engines, like you can locate one and locate the information quickly now. And, you know, take the time to consider when information is being presented and how it's being presented. Again, find the original sources, you know, use your databases, they're wonderful, but also go back to getting a copy of your original sources. And bookmark sites, because sometimes you're looking and then you go back and you want to see something, you can't find it, it's gone. So bookmark your sites. And again, remember that your databases and indexes are not primary sources. So they're wonderful tools to use, and document where you found this information. I find where and when and what's in the databases. And the use of computers and the internet allows us to see images of documents or books that are found in libraries and archives. And of course, email allows us to communicate with people from all over the world. I know, talking to some of the people at the Regina branch, you know, some people have found relatives from, you know, by email. So it's so much, you know, easier to find information. And I find that even sometimes when your name is out there, like if your name is in a book someplace, sometimes they contact you, a relative will contact you and say, you know, I've had it on my husband's side, they've contacted me, and I'm thinking, wow, someone else is searching the same family. So it's wonderful to gather information and get information from them. Privacy, freedom of information and protection of the Privacy Act. In Saskatchewan, the Freedom of Information and Protection Privacy Act allows people to access information processed or controlled by the government, subject to certain exemptions and privacy rules. And of course, our records can be obtained from the Government of Canada. We've got military records that we can access. And of course, the vital part of research is understanding the copyright rules. And how we use a document for our private use is quite different from when we wish to publish it. We can gather information and have it in our own private files because it's only us that are looking at it. But then when we're going to publish it, that's a different story. We have to be careful sometimes, and what we're publishing if we're going to publish a book for ourselves. And remember, make sure that your information is as accurate as possible. Make sure that you have your primary source documented and where you've gotten this information from. And also acknowledge the work of others. Like if you've gotten, you know, some of the family tree histories from other people, you know, acknowledge that they've done the research for you and that, you know, they've shared it with you, so you can, you know, and then of course you have to document their sources and make sure that their sources are correct also. And remember that privacy does take precedence over your desire to share the information. So sometimes we'll find information in our families that maybe your great aunt or your grandma has shared with you, that, you know, maybe a birth of a baby out of wedlock that maybe some of the other families don't know about, but they've shared that with you. So you'd have to use your discretion as to what you publish or what you have. Okay, just a bit about the Saskatchewan Genealogist Society. It was formed in 1969 by a group who are interested in promoting some of family history. I started doing we were going to have I think it was the 40th or 45th anniversary party for the Regina branch. And I took some of the records home with me and I was sort of retyping them and whatnot. So it's kind of interesting information that I had found in there. So that they were formed and with 2 or 3 people that were interested. And it's amazing how big the group has formed. So it's wonderful. And of course, the SGS and you can read them yourself. They have all the following resources. They have the bulletin, they have cemetery program, and they have the SRI. And you know, they've got a lot of information that is at your fingertips by becoming a member. Or even if you're a non-member, you can always go there and you can look and borrow. You can look at their books and everything. So it's a good idea to become a member, though. And of course, my sources for today's talk has been taken out of the Tracing Your Saskatchewan Ancestors, a guide to the records and of Saskatchewan and how to use them. This is a book that's available for sale at the SGS. Anybody can have it, or you can borrow it. It's in the library too. And also some notes that I have taken from the beginners courses that I've taught in previous lessons. And, I think that's it. I hope I haven't talked too fast. And if you have any questions that you'd have to ask or anything, any comments you'd like to make, we'll just go for it. Now, Diane, do I click on the top now and get out of here?
Sure, you can.
Okay, I can click on the top here.
I don't see any questions in the chat yet. Does anybody have
Okay.
any questions for Darlene?
Oh, show grid. Oh, no. What else can I do here?
Darlene, is there a stop share at the top of your screen?
Let's stop share. Oh, there it is. Thanks, Shelley. Oh, there we go. Wonderful. Technology. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. I had PowerPoint at work. And so I had a couple daughters that sort of, said, Mom, this is how you kind of do these things. And I'm thinking, oh, technology. Technology and I don't always get along together, but we did it.
Okay, we have a question here from Terry. She says, oops, this disappeared here.
I've been getting an echo the whole time.
Pardon?
I've been getting an echo the whole time and I haven't figured out how to get, and I see I'm on here twice. And I was trying to leave, but I couldn't do it.
Darlene, the question from Terry is, do you keep files digitally? And if so, which program do you use?
Yes, I have. I'm sorry, I haven't kept very much up to date. Now, what is the name of the program? I think it's Family Tree. And what I do is I have, of course I'm a paper person, but I think in genealogy you still have to have paper. But I take and I copy all of and I think it's Family Tree Maker that I have used. Although I bought Legacy, but I have never loaded that, and it's on my to do file to do that. I find it very easy, if you put it into a program, because someone will say, like my sister-in-law said, Darlene, do you have a copy of our family tree? So you can quite easily copy it out, right? Like I take it from the grandparent that's 3 or 4 generations back and print it all out for people. And so then it's just what it is. It's a family line, right? And so, yes, I do have it in there.
Okay. Jill has a similar question, and she says, thank you for this. Any tips on organizing the unsorted years of work that we all have, no doubt?
You know what? This year I had a bunch of files in my filing cabinet, and actually I thought, okay, it's time to do this. So I went through those files, and I actually pulled papers out of there, and I actually put them into my binder. So what I do is, let's pick on my grandparents. Okay, so what I do for my grandparents is I put their behind their family unit sheet, I put something to do with them. So I put their wedding photo. I put their wedding certificate if you have it. I put anything to do with them behind that. So I take it out of the file folders and I actually physically put it into clear plastic, and then I put it into the binder in behind their unit sheet. And so that's what I've kind of done, like anything to do with them. And then I put in an index, like a cardboard folder saying, and then I put then there's their children that are next. So then like my mom was the oldest one. So I put her and my dad on the next one. And then I put all the information behind them. And that's how I found that I kind of keep track of things. And what I do is for each family name, like my family name is Fish, And so I've got a fish file. And so anything I find, I put it in that file for now, just, and like the Rohrbeck file and like any of my family names and anything I find, if people have babies. And so you get a baby announcement. Well, I put it in there. And then I sit down and then I put that baby announcement in behind that family unit sheet. So, but yes, we all have, file. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah, I was just wondering if you use like spreadsheet or, Word program for writing out your family history or anything like that.
No,
No, okay.
I just, no, not
You're a
yet.
paper
It's-
person.
I'm a paper person. Yes. And I mean, you should you should write a story about yourself. Like I've been trying to do that, even about yourself and all the work things you've done, right? Like you should be writing that about yourself.
Yeah.
And
I
so-
started writing letters to my granddaughter.
Yes.
And stories of me growing up. And
Yes.
Yeah. So that's where I started with, and then I'll keep a copy, and
Yes.
somebody else in the family has received the stories.
Yes.
Yeah, because
Yes,
I'm trying to
it's-
get them interested in the genealogy and the family history. So somebody in the next generation will take over all the research that I've done.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
it doesn't just go in the garbage.
Yes. Yeah. It's amazing. You hope that someone is going to be, but some of the grandchildren do, they expect some interest every now and again.
Yeah,
And I
Yeah.
also keep family, like my daughter-in-law does Christmas letters. Like some people do Christmas letters too. So
yeah,
I also keep them in the file with that family, either in their file folder, or else I put it in behind their family unit too. Because there's lots of information in there too, in the family letters.
exactly. Yeah, it's too bad that a lot of people have quit writing those.
Yes.
Yes.
Mind
yeah.
you, some people still send emails. And so those emails, keep the
Yeah.
emails too.
Yeah, no, my kids, they used to, and then they said those were good because kept track of what we did every year.
That's right.
And now we don't know, well, what year did we do that? Because we're not writing those Christmas letters anymore. So,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Excuse me, please.
Life gets busy.
Darlene, we have a question from
Could-
Jody.
Could somebody help me get out of this echo? I cannot understand.
Bob, you have 2 sessions of your Zoom
I
on
know,
at
but
the
how do I
same
get,
time.
how do I get rid of one? I've been
Okay.
trying to do it.
Click on the X on the top right-hand corner of your screen.
And by the way, the print is so small, I can't read it.
He may also have to mute himself too. I see he's not muted. Maybe that would help.
He's muted on one, but
One
not the
and
other.
not the
Yeah.
other.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I
Okay,
still can't get out of here.
Deanne, as the host, I think you can kick him out.
What's
just
that?
looking here. I'll just remove him here. Okay, I removed one, Bob.
Okay,
Is that better?
yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
okay. A question from Jody for you, Darlene.
Sure.
Where can I find the list of ports that come from US to Canada by land?
Oh, good question. But I don't know if I can answer that or not. Could anybody else help with that? Do we have lists in the library? And we've got some, I know.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're all there, but we do have some in the library.
Yeah. And I know, of course, internet, and I personally haven't done too much research on the reports of getting in. Does anybody else have any ideas? Has anybody else done any work with that? I'm sorry, I can't answer your question. Still, where is it? We can check that out though. And I know some of the other gals are going to be doing some reports later on. And so maybe we can check that out and we can have an answer for you on one of our next sessions.
Yeah, or give us a call at the library, Jody. Well,
That would be good. Thank you.
okay. Jan is asking, I think Jan joined us a little bit late, so she's asking, how do you number people on your pedigree charts.
How do you number them? Well, you know, I started in the early days when I first started doing this, I did start to number them, but you know, I don't anymore. I don't.
Darlene, I think she's referring to the pedigree chart you showed at first, you know,
Yeah.
you're number one and then your father's number two and
Yeah,
Ah,
Yeah.
oh, right. Sorry about that. Sorry. Yes, thanks, Shelley. Yes. Are you looking at your pedigree chart there? So number one is yourself. Well, it depends on where you start. Like I put myself on there, but I mean, you can put anybody on there. Like you can put your children on there. You can put your children on there. So then they would be number one, right? And then you'd work it up. But the father's name goes across along the top, and then the mother's name down below. So number one is yourself, number two is your father, and number three is your mother.
Yeah, can you hear me?
yes.
Okay, now after the number 8, when I start with the 5th generation there, how do I start numbering then?
so this is Shelley here, Jan. Jan, you see if you have a number 8 person and you want to start there, you see the little note in the top left-hand corner. It says number 1 on this chart is the same as number blank on chart, whatever.
Yeah.
You start numbering your charts from number 1, but then your number 8 goes on to the next chart. So you go number 8 on chart number 2. And so then you do their pedigree and you continue on into infinity.
Okay,
Thanks,
so you
Shelley.
just go,
You're welcome, darling.
8 and then 9 and 10 and,
Correct. And then 34 and 150 and all that. Yeah.
okay,
I guess I forgot to mention that these charts, like the family unit sheet, I made that up myself, right? And like I said, you're certainly welcome to photocopy it and use it for your own research and everything. The other charts are available from the SJS library. I think they charge for them, but it would be a small fee. So the 4 charts that I gave, in fact, that the pedigree chart, it looks like it is from the SJS. I've used that as because it does say along the side there. So those should be gotten from the SJS library.
okay, thank
Sure.
you.
And I think you can also find them on the internet too.
Okay, another
Or
question.
make your own. You can. I mean, these research ones are and the log ones. I mean, that is easy. Like if you have a spreadsheet, they're very easy to just set up on your own spreadsheets on your own. Like if you have an Excel spreadsheet or whatever spreadsheets you use, they're easy enough to set up. And I think the one fellow that presented was that last year. He did a bit of on research. I think on research he had a whole paper on their spreadsheets that he used. So you can develop your own system.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, another question from Jody. What tips to purchasing a program? Which programs would you suggest?
You know, we've gone to various sessions and I know that, some people, is it Legacy? They love Legacy. People love the Family Tree Maker. That's the one I had purchased it just because it was at the, I don't know, Staples or something when I went to buy it. And at the very beginning of my genealogy career or whatever it's called, I bought a real cheap little program. That worked just as well as the more expensive ones. I can't really answer that question because, of course, like everything else, it depends on what you want as an end result. Because I mean, some of the programs are better at or producing your family unit sheet. Some are better for writing stories, and unfortunately, it just depends on whatever you kind of like. So sorry, Jody, I can't really. Oh,
Okay, a
I
question.
call-
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I called in and they also said that Legacy and Family Tree are the 2 more popular ones. So I think I'll check out some of the websites that talk about them for a little more info. Thank you.
yes, certainly, yeah.
Okay.
And I know there are people at SGS that they prefer one or the other. They like to use different ones.
Okay, Gerald has asked, are there church records available for Saskatchewan online?
Hmm. I don't know that I know the answer to that or not. I think we're going to be talking about that in one of the next sessions about church records. Sorry, I don't know the answer to your question.
I know there are some online, Gerald, depends on what you're looking for, so we've been using them a bit in some of the Aboriginal research that we've been doing, so I know there is some online. It's kind of a hit and miss, I think, right now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I just, I know someone said that you can use Family Search. Family Search has some records of them on them, but
Yeah,
I
they
was
do.
general, you know, like the Catholic Church, the United Church, there was a spot where they had records available. The only ones I've been able to find are, you know, basically late 1800s and early 1900s.
Yeah, we're looking for volunteers to help on the United Church files that we're working with the provincial archives in partnership with them on. So if there's anybody in Regina that wants to participate, we're going to be starting that up very soon again, and it has to be done at the provincial archives office. So any volunteers, just let me know. We'll get those going again.
Thank you.
Donald, Sask online cemetery records. There are several and they seem incomplete. I have used the SJS database and the Saskatchewan Cemeteries Project. Is there a preferred source?
Hmm. You know, we've got an extensive cemetery records of the SGS, don't we? There's a
We do. They're not
Very good.
online, but we do have a cemetery index or
and
file here.
as a non-member, we can come in and use it, or is it just members that can use that cemetery?
You can come in and look at it here. Yeah. As a
Yeah.
non-member too. Yeah.
As a non-member, members or non-members?
Yeah.
That's quite extensive. That it's paper files in the filing cabinet, and people have gone out and looked at different cemeteries and
Yeah.
have recorded the cemeteries.
Our members. Sorry.
Lots of useful information there. Probably didn't answer your question for online.
Next question, on the family unit chart, it says residence under name of cemetery. What is that referring to?
Let me look here.
And where was the site
the
you
residence
noted
of
for
where?
cemetery records other than your office?
Residence is where they lived, like where the husband or the father lived. Like where they lived, like that's,
Where they lived before they passed away.
like where they lived mostly. Like for myself, I would be saying at Edgeworth, that's where I was that was where my farm was. And then I've moved to Regina. After marriage, I moved to Regina, and it kind of lists the names of the places that you lived. Regina, Edmonton, I put down, I was in Edmonton for a while. So yeah, so that's your where this person has lived.
Don just mentioned that he's from BC, so that's why he's looking for the online, because he can't come in and look at our cemetery files.
Ah,
So,
now I think that if he sends a question into the SGS library, though, that I think someone would probably could look it up for him.
yeah, we'll
mean,
do a
it's hard
search for
to
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
But I know there are some cemetery records online too, but probably a hit and miss.
But we have some researchers that'll do a search for you, Donald, if you let us know what you're looking for. Not a problem. Okay, any other questions?
I have a suggestion for future chats, if there are questions you can't answer, if you can get the answers and somehow get back to us on them.
Okay. No, that's
Um,
good.
You know, you can post it maybe on the Saskatchewan Genealogical Society as, you know, an additional page on the chat information. These were the questions we were unable to answer, but we have some suggestions now that we have, you know, looked into for you. I just think it would be nice to have.
Okay.
Thanks, Jody. We
That's a
will-
good suggestion. Yeah, we'll work, you know, with our college and with Deanna, and we'll, because we're going to have a meeting later on this afternoon. Our college is having a meeting later on this afternoon. So these are good points.
And we've
And
got quite a few topics planned going ahead, Jody. So some of that may be covered in those sessions as well. So I'll be posting a list of some of those topics coming up. So
Yeah, it's Shelley here. I just put our email address into the chat. And so anyone can email their question if it wasn't answered today to that email address, and we'll do our best to either include it in one of the future sessions or answer it individually.
great. Thank you, Shelley.
You're welcome.
Donald also said, awesome, our birth records online.
Some are,
Birth records in Saskatchewan are
mm,
online or at eHealth Saskatchewan. You have to go through eHealth to get those. We're quite far behind other provinces when it comes to that, Donald, to be honest. Any other questions? Okay, Darlene, thank you so much for doing your presentation today. Lots of good information in there for us. And I see Shelley has just put the vital records, the eHealth link in the chat. And that's Donald, where you can contact them about birth records. Chat with the genealogist is scheduled to the end of the year for every third Saturday in the month. And I'll put them on our website and on our Facebook page for some of the topics coming up. Then in the new year in 2022, just so you can mark your calendars, it'll be moving to the second Saturday morning of the month. A few other little points for you. Next weekend, our Moose Jaw branch is sponsoring a presentation on Eastern European genealogy. And you can register for that if you haven't already done so. There is a presenter from the Eastern European Genealogical Society giving that session.
Is that
And
online?
yeah, it'll be a Zoom session as well.
Okay, and where do we register for that?
The link is on our website. You can do that.
Okay.
I can. Right there.
Yeah, I'll go and look at, do that.
Thank you. October, I think it's the 23rd. We have to just double confirm that again. We're having Ancestry Day with Leslie Anderson. She'll be doing 3 Zoom sessions for us on that Saturday. So that there'll be lots of information there that day. And one last important thing to mention is SGS has started their second annual online 50/50 raffle to raise some money so we can do some more things like this and for our branch programming and SGS program and services. So if you're interested in that, you can purchase tickets at www.sgs5050.ca. And last year, the lucky winner took home $5,835. And the draw is coming up on October 29th. So if you're interested, by all means, check it out. The jackpot is growing. So I see no further questions. So we're going to end it for today. Thanks again, Darlene, and thanks everybody for joining us.
You're welcome. And I'd like to also say thanks to everybody also. So we'll see you again in the next session. Bye.
Thank you.